And we are live. Hello there. This is Dan Gaster stepping in for Pete Brooker today for From Tailors With Love live stream and podcast. Today we have on the call, we have Ken Stauffer from Oceanographer. Hello there, Ken.
Hey, good to see you, Dan.
Thank you. Matt Spaiser from Bond Suits.
Hello, Dan. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. And first time guest on the live stream and podcast, Joseph Darlington from Being James Bond. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Daniel, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, very good.
Great stuff. So just so that we've covered things for today, we've got a sponsorship. So let's add that to the stream so that I can, there we go. And it's with the Savile Row Gin, Savile Row Gin Experience are sponsoring us today, where the art of bespoke gin making and tailoring come together in the heart of London's Mayfair. Savile Row style, your journey will begin by greeting the host at the meeting place, which is the entrance of number 14 Savile Row, formerly the headquarters of Sir Hardy Ames, dressmaker to Queen Elizabeth II for over 50 years. Here you will be welcomed with a refreshing gin and tonic in the Pink Room, where you enjoy an insight into the art of bespoke tailoring. So that's the... I hate reading things out loud. I do apologise. So that's the Savile Row Gin Experience.co.uk who are sponsoring us today. Go and have a look at them and let us know how that goes for you. So, gents, today, thank you for coming to the Early Bond live stream. We have some news today, but following that, we'll be talking about your guys' weekend, looking at the other fella, which was... a bit of detail on that just before we go to the news. So that happened on Saturday?
Yeah, that's right. That was Saturday afternoon in New York. Yeah.
Cool. And where was that?
In New York. What was that? The around Union Square, somewhere around there? At a place called
Cinema Village.
Yeah,
Cinema Village. In Greenwich Village. Very old-fashioned, small New York cinema.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds lovely. Right. Well, we'll get back into that in a bit. First of all, we'll go to the news. So bear with me for 1 second as I find the right jingle. I'm, as I said, flying solo today, so I'm having to do everything.
Gentlemen and ladies, hold the presses. This just in. Gentlemen and ladies, hold the presses. This just in. Gentlemen and ladies,
I think we got it.
This just in.
Just in.
Here we go.
Well, you can tell it's a live stream if things go wrong, and it certainly does. So yes, coming from the 007.com, Harrods have got an installation started, I think it was Sunday just gone. It's there for 4 weeks, and it's in partnership with Macallan, the whiskey provider in both Skyfall and in Spectre. So this installation in Harrods, they've got a few props in, including Little Nelly, which they managed to wheel in there somehow. Now, I have got a short video that was provided to us by LDN. Where is that? Talk among yourself, gentlemen, because,
Yeah. I mean, just one of the cool things about being in London is you can have Bond stuff just pop up, whereas that doesn't happen in New York.
Yeah. This is things like this that make the American guys pretty jealous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Little Nelly like in person? I haven't.
Was it at any of the exhibits?
I feel like I have seen it before when they had this interactive experience in London. It was like a James Bond ride, but it was like a 3D. It was like you're in a harness and you're just watching a thing. It was between World Is Not Enough and Die Another Day, but it was. I was a teenager back then. I feel like I saw it then, but this is an exterior shot. So this is just for the live stream viewers. This is an exterior shot from Harrods provided by LDN Bond on Instagram. anybody just describing what we've seen, has anybody seen the Macallan advertising for these 6 bottles? It's sort of like a animation of the sort of storyboarding of the 6 decades of Bond. So, question, gentlemen, any of you going to be coming over to see that in the next 4 weeks?
4 weeks, man.
I wish.
I wish.
Any of you thinking about purchasing a bottle of Macallan for £600? I don't know what the equivalent is in dollars.
Jeez,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Again, I wish.
Wait, how much is one bottle? What'd you say?
£600.
600, so like $1,000. No, I think I'm all right.
They have it, you know, if you do go to Harrods during this period of time that they're there, you can buy all 6 bottles in a specially custom-made Globetrotter case. Does that not tempt you?
What's you just got to take out a second mortgage, right? That's
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't know about
to house the. Yeah. So yeah, that's. I mean, I am going to London in theory in a few weeks, so I might be able to have a look at this installation. If I do, I'll get some photos and share them. But we'll soon see.
See, the problem with that is I could buy the suitcase that's filled with whiskey, but then I get to the airport. Oh no, you can only have 1.5 ounces.
That's a good point.
3 ounces.
Checking that in, yeah.
Yeah, the Globetrotter gets beat to hell in the underneath the plane.
What the whiskey breaks? It's all leaking.
Yeah, even worse.
A bit of news is kind of no news, really. This came out saying that James Bond producers give a brief update on Bond 26, which is they haven't started casting yet. There's not even a script. Anybody surprised by this?
No, I mean, I'm surprised that I've been seeing people who are surprised by it. Like people post that they're like, what's going on? Like, wait, we expected more. I'm like, you really expected more than this? No, no.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I just say to myself, like, how can anybody be surprised at this point? I mean, we like, you guys know the drill. Like, they're all tired. They're all whatever. They're nothing at all. Yeah, I'm surprised anybody would even be mildly surprised.
I got to say, like the past couple months, what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's got a great agent. Just like keeps bringing that rumor to like the forefront. You know, but I don't think there's any truth to it. I don't think they're even thinking about it yet.
No.
But it's go on. Sorry.
No, this like really was. It's helping a few careers here. It's helping, plenty of people that can really take advantage of there not being Bond news.
Yeah.
I think potentially, and I'm just seeing this from the other side, I suppose, from looking at it, is that there was a long period of time, obviously, where they were trying to get No Time to Die out because of COVID and everything. And I think potentially the thought is that they might have been doing some script writing during that COVID period or preparing for the next film during that COVID period. But I don't think I think you guys are right that they're taking their time on it. They've got to find the right person. They've also got to try to work out what kind of script they want for a reimagined James Bond, I suppose, because the current one is no longer with us in ways and one.
Yeah.
I think they also, even before COVID, with No Time to Die, they had, Danny Boyle, and it seemed like they were even up to the stage where they were building sets for him, like for his version of the film. But then they had to go back to the drawing board, hire a new director. So maybe they're taking their time in the development of it so that they don't have those stop-start, wasting cash on that.
I mean, we had 2 reschedules before COVID, didn't we? I think it was originally slated for November and moved to February, and then again moved to then March, and then obviously then everything kicked off.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if. I mean, it sounds like from other news we've had before that Purvis and Wade are still with the Bond series, and they probably have ideas. I mean, I'm sure that they must just write down ideas that they have. I don't know if maybe they've shared them with Barbara and Michael. Maybe they haven't. And maybe Barbara and Michael didn't like any of their ideas. They have just more to come up with. Maybe they do have ideas that are already that are set in stone, and maybe they just don't have a script yet, but they have something else.
I'm picturing, Barbara and Michael having people come to them saying, "Hey, I have an idea for a new direction, whatever," and the two of them are just like, "I'm not up for it yet. Just come back to me in a little while. I'm just."
They must get like 1,000 headshots in the mail every day. Oh, I can play James Bond. Oh, you're like...
Sure.
And I think, from past conversations, I think that, they've got to look for somebody that's going to do at least 3 or 4 films, and they've got to try to look for a period of time where, that's going to be set in terms of, we're going to have a Bond for at least 10 years, maybe. Right. Well, moving on from that, let's get to the really key thing that we have you guys here to talk about, and that is this. So this is The Other Fella, which you guys actually saw on Saturday. So for the people who are uninitiated, Joe, do you want to give us a brief about what The Other Fella is?
Yeah, it's well, I'll start out by saying it's very unique. And I think people who are looking for a new Bond documentary, I think will be, I would say temper your expectations, because I wouldn't call this a James Bond documentary in the traditional sense. Essentially, it's a look at several people who just happen to have the name James Bond, and what that has kind of meant. Because again, it's kind of a household name, really. I mean, anybody knows James Bond. So, I don't know if we want to get into like reviewing it yet. I don't want to give the whole thing away, but yeah, basically that's basically it. It's kind of the name James Bond is essentially the starting off point, and it kind of goes from there and blossoms in different directions, and it basically becomes just a story about people, and how they. This kind of unique thing that brings people together, and similar hurdles, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, the name James Bond was originally taken from a book. It was an author from
the ornithologist.
Ornithology. That's quite.
And that's actually that's a somewhat significant part of this film, about how the name, where the character got the name, and even how the ornithologist felt about having the name James Bond after Ian Fleming made it into something else.
Mm-hmm. And it is a documentary, but it's definitely not dry. It's very funny, pretty dramatic, and even a bit bittersweet at times. To Joe's point, I would say if you're a Bond fan, there's like little jokes in there that you'll get that you really appreciate. But if you're not a Bond fan, it's still just a very enjoyable, whatever it is, hour and a half. I think this is one where, like if your significant other, your, or your kids or your friend or whatever, aren't a big Bond fan like yourself, you can take them and see this movie or watch it on the couch on demand, and, they'll have a great time too. The other thing about this event was that David Zaritsky put together a bunch of us to come and see it with him and the director. He's a first-time director named Matthew Bauer,
okay,
from Australia. And I talked to him a little bit after, we all did, and he's a Bond fan, but and he had the idea when he was trying to like get the email address like Matthew Bauer at Gmail or whatever, and like, no, you can't get that. You got to go with like Matthew Bauer, 621, and then who has that email address, and then thinking about, well, what names would be really like hurdles to get over. Oh, James Bond is the most famous name in the world, so
yeah. I would wholeheartedly agree with that too, that this is exactly the kind of movie that you can take your family to go see, watch it at home, because it's interesting, because especially for Bond fanatics like us, it's very hard to impress us these days. I mean, I feel like we've looked under every rock for any morsel of Bond material to discuss. So this was really a unique take, and it was fun, because again, the Bond, it was sort of a thread that sort of put it all together. But again, but the story just happens to be about it's a human story, and it goes in a lot of different directions.
I like how this. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I like how this film is offering us something new. Like, 'cause I feel like we've watched so many Bond documentaries. We, as big Bond fans, we kind of just know all of the mainstream stuff that would appear in any Bond documentary. I mean, when I watched like that, was it the Sound of Bond, or whatever that documentary, I knew probably about 3/4 of the stories already. And with this one, this was something that I could sit back and watch something very, fresh, something, hear new stories that maybe they're not about the Bond films, but they are related to Bond. And one of my favorite things is how some of these, these people, like, they're tired of hearing all those, cliche Bond lines when they find out that their name is, someone finds out their name is James Bond, they're like, oh, shaken, not stirred. And that's the kind of thing that people say to us as Bond fans, that just I'm like, I kind of feel we have that same experience, like just people, just saying all these cliched things to us as Bond fans. And of course, these people who are James Bond get it so much more. So it's like, that's a way that, we can kind of like relate to some of these people, even though we don't exactly relate to them, because some of them really hate the James Bond films.
Just to point out in the chat, we have said director. Well said, Joe.
Hey, Matt.
Very cool.
Hi there. Maybe we could try. Are you, Matt? Are you happy to jump on if I could send you a link? See if.
While we wait for his response, I was just to explain.
Just for
Matt,
those on the podcast, we've had a chat from the director of the film that we're discussing. Just pop up in the chat to say hello, and sure, right. I'll try to thread him in. Ken,
that'd be great. Oh yeah, I was just thinking. When you watch some of these Bond documentaries, I'm thinking of, what was the Lazenby one where it's just him talking about his life, becoming Bond? Yeah, becoming Bond. Because these stories so well, and you've heard these facts, and the dates and stuff. When one of the Bond actors or somebody talking in a documentary gets a fact wrong, it's like so infuriating.
Oh yeah.
You're watching and you're like, "Does nobody fact check this? How do you not remember your own life?" We were just talking about that with Brosnan the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were we saying about Brosnan? Was it something to do? It wasn't his watches, was it? It was his.
It was a suit he wore in Remington Steel.
And he got. So it was from a different. He thought it was from a different episode. This was from. Yeah, he posted a photo of the series finale, which aired in 1987, probably filmed in 86, and he's talking about how they went to Ireland to film in 84. Because they filmed 2 years earlier, they filmed some other episodes all over Europe, in Malta, Ireland. And so I think he must have gotten that confused. I wonder if he bought that suit earlier. Oh, we have the director.
Welcome, Matthew.
Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Matt.
Good to see you.
Hello, guys. Yes, stop getting Remington Steel wrong.
Welcome to From Tailors With Love podcast and live stream. How are you doing today, Matthew?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I was actually just watching on to see what some of the people who saw the film on Saturday thought. But yes, thank you for shooting me. Thank you for shooting me that link, and yes, thank you for saying nice things about the film, guys. Much appreciated. And I think you've kind of nailed it. This is. I am a Bond fan, but this is not a Bond fan film. This is trying very hard and hopefully succeeding to be, a documentary that really kind of stands on its own kind of 2 feet. But I thought I'd pop in. I've got to be on something else in 10 minutes, guys, but I just wanted to say hi.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Matt, I have a question. Are you as big a Bond fan as the rest of us are?
No, so I grew up in Adelaide, Australia, where I was the biggest Bond fan in the local area for sure. I had my, the collection on the walls. And actually in Adelaide, Australia in the 90s, it's actually quite hard to amass a James Bond collection, and so there were 2 shops in the city that I would go in. One was called Antique Market. The other was called Movie Maniacs. And I would pop in there every weekend to see if a Bond thing had kind of popped up. Yeah, so I was always that kind of kid. Yeah. And then I will say, though, from meeting a lot of you guys, and also the Swedish James Bond who you see in the film with his whole collection, yes, I now am not the biggest Bond fan, I know for sure.
Well, thank you for putting up with this on Saturday. We do appreciate that.
Yeah, that's why I also got to meet the world's #1 Ocean's 11 fan, which I was not expecting. So yes.
It's a hobby, you know.
So Matthew, what have you got coming up? Are you touring at the moment with the film?
Yes, yeah. I actually just saw someone asked in the chat while this film was crawling around the world, and the answer would be, we don't have the budget of something like a Men in Black or a Bond film to do an international day-and-day release, kind of as they call it. It's been slowly kind of sold off to different territories. Our next big one is actually the UK. Finally, so it's our distributor said it's being released there in Q2, which means April, May, June. So sometime around then, it's going to be in, some cinema. And again, with these things, it's not like a wide release. It played here in New York on the weekend. But yes, I imagine you'll be able to see this in a few British cinemas sometime around then. But yeah, we've been on quite a long tour with this, and I'm finally going to be able to go back and do this from my home in London, which is going to be really nice, actually. Yes, it gets a bit exhausting, but it was great having the whole kind of Bond community sort of down there on Saturday as well.
Well, I look forward to
people want to stream.
To see it.
Sorry,
go ahead.
If people want to stream this, where can they? Do you know where people can stream it in America, in England, or elsewhere?
Yeah. So right now, if you're in Australia, you can stream it on SBS On Demand. And then if you're in America, you can stream it on, it's on a bunch, it's on like Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Vudu, Comcast, Spectrum. It's actually just available on YouTube as well, which can be the easiest for a lot of people. But if you go to our Instagram or Facebook, they're all like Facebook/The Other Fellow. There's like a Linktree link to all of them on there or on our website as well. So it's kind of pops up in sort of various spots. It's going to be streaming in like Poland in a few months. If you're in the Catalan region of Spain, you can stream it right now. It kind of is. It's funny with international distribution with these kind of things. Yes, it's up on there. And if any of you have got it, please give it a rating on Amazon or Apple or whatever. These things do kind of help. But yeah, I don't know if you've got any questions, Daniel, especially someone who hasn't seen the film.
Well, I did try just to see if I could find it anywhere online. And we said we were going to discuss about this. I was trying to look on Apple, and so obviously it's not available in the UK yet. But I look forward to when it's released so that I can watch it and get an idea of what the other gentlemen have expressed today. No, I think it's a very interesting, like the others were saying, it's an interesting take on a different viewpoint. I mean, like Joe was saying, some of these people had named James Bond, but have absolutely no interest in 007.
Yeah, it kind of varies. We've got our Swedish. So there's a guy in the film who some Bond fans know, and he's often known as like the Swedish James Bond. And he's a man in Sweden who, it's a complicated story you'll see in the film, but because of his missing Nazi father, he slowly spent his life turning himself literally into James Bond. And him actually changing his name to James Bond was kind of just the icing on the cake to a lifelong journey that we try and follow.
Oh, he changed his name.
Well, he changes his name, but kind of it's actually more he's changed himself into James Bond. You know, he drives around this small, snowy town in Sweden, confusing all of the locals in his Aston Martin. And so he's the one in the film who actually is the big Bond fan who really kind of goes for it. Whereas conversely, our one here in New York, who is our, I guess you would say, homosexual James Bond, the interesting thing with him is he like professes to hate it. He tells the world how much he hates it. But I think as well, that has kind of become his shtick. And I don't think he would kind of know who he was if he didn't spend his life complaining about being named Bond. And so, that's the thing with a lot of these guys. They're sort of stuck in this like catch-22 situation. And, I ask, and everyone always asks them, they're like, well, if it's so bad, why not just change your name? And I asked them all that, and like that's not a route that one of them actually does. I won't spoil which one, but generally for them, not a route they kind of want to go down. But I mean, I'd ask the other Bond guys on here, especially how you felt as Bond fans, because especially the Swedish guy, he's almost a guy who's watched a few too many David Zaritsky videos. and really gone down the Bond experience being James Bond route, and really kind of gone all the way with it. And I don't know, did you guys bristle a bit as Bond fans in those moments, or what were the kind of moments that hit you guys?
I'll it was very funny because honestly, well, first of all, I think what was fascinating about the film is that it does sort of run the gambit in terms of some people in it absolutely loved James Bond, some people hated it, some people found that the name was kind of a curse, some people found it was a blessing, some people found it was a blessing in disguise. Watching the Swedish fan, I think there was part of me that kind of like, oh, this guy's great. He's having a lot of fun. He's obviously having a lot of success doing it. He's enjoying himself. Then there's another part of me that's kind of like sinking in my seat a little bit, and I kind of thought like this is the moment where you're watching something and your wife or girlfriend would look at you and go like, are you one of these dudes over here? So, it was sort of all over.
Yeah, a little
that was I could definitely see like I don't want to quite be this guy, and I don't think any of us are, because none of us have changed our name to James Bond. but there was actually one thing that the thing that actually made me cringe the most about him was that he wears black tie with a wing collar shirt, and as this Bond style person, that is something that James Bond has not done once, and that goes against James Bond style. So it's like seeing this guy trying to be James Bond doing the one black tie style that is the anti James Bond style. Is that kind of hurt me the most.
That was my biggest takeaway too, Matt, is that he's got to look at your website more, like he's got all the details wrong.
I was thinking that especially Bond suits would maybe take some issues sort of with the way he does things. But that's kind of with him. What I kind of admire with him, he just does his own thing, and he has this he just doesn't give a fuck what anybody thinks about it, and he sort of does his thing. And how do I put it? I don't think he takes notes on his being James Bond, if you know what I mean. He does his thing in his little town in Sweden. And yes, I imagine there are some sartorial errors. Yes, in there.
Before you go, Matthew, Pete Brooker has asked a question in the chat. Did you have any contact with Eon at all during this process?
No, I mean, we haven't really had touch with them. I mean, you'll see when you kind of see the film, this really isn't about the James Bond films. So there's no clips from the Bond films or kind of anything like that. And that's because, the actual material in the James Bond film itself doesn't actually affect these guys at all. Most of them say they've never seen a Bond film, or they avoid them like the plague, So, the plot of Skyfall doesn't affect them. What affects them, and you'll see it very much in the film, is just the noise of James Bond that exists in the media sphere 24/7. We're doing this live stream right now. If you watch CNN today, I guarantee you they'll mention James Bond 3 times, and often kind of as like a verb, you know what I mean? Oh, that's very James Bond, yada, yada. But then, of course, when a film is coming out, and that's when we tried to film the most, you do just have the noise out there of the James Bond films. And so you'll see in the film, we kind of superimpose a lot of like the CNN footage and that kind of thing over the cities these men are in, almost like it's the spaceship from Independence Day. sort of hovering above them. And so that's kind of what we use. And then because of this noise, what kind of interested me is what it's that kind of and then, and therefore this happens. And so, so if your name is James Bond, for instance, here in New York, and a new James Bond film is coming out, a lot of like lower grade companies decide, and probably interest you guys, but a lot of lower grade companies like used car shops and that kind of thing, one or two of them will have the idea of doing a James Bond ad and getting a guy called James Bond to endorse them. So if your name is James Bond, your phone starts ringing with like offers for TV commercials and that kind of thing. And we follow one who ends up doing an ad for like an online casino, saying, my name is James Bond and I support this, yada, yada. So our film is kind of about that thing that happens with these guys. And so in that sense, no, we didn't have contact with them because we weren't ever really after like a clip from a James Bond film. And I think we also, this had to be its own thing. We didn't want this to feel like a DVD extra or really a documentary about the kind of James Bond films. And I think for the guys who've seen it, you'll know that this goes really hard on these characters and their stories. And the film is very, very busy with the dramas that these characters find themselves in. And I think if you've seen the film, there isn't really a point in the film where it would feel natural to cut to one of those clips sort of anyway. We did use a few like archival interviews with like Daniel Craig and that sort of thing. But again, kind of in that media sphere rather than the sphere of the Bond films, if that makes sense. But guys, I just have to jump off. Funnily enough, I'm doing an interview on an American show called the Dr. Ward Bond Show. And he's a TV host with the last name Bond. And he's waiting in a tuxedo, very excited to do this. So I'm going to have to leave you to it. But I also want to leave you guys to give your honest reviews of the film without the director lurking over you. So please go ahead. But guys, thank you for giving the shout out.
Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a great film, Matt. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, Matt.
Catch that.
Thank you very much, Matthew. See you later. Well, that was different.
It's a nice little surprise.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have him on.
Does anyone have a different opinion now that he's gone? I truly
now
do.
that he's gone, be really honest about it. Like, so, guys, let's go around. What would you rate it out of 5?
Oh, as a documentary, I give it 5 out of 5. If you're looking for something that is about the Bond films, then no, it's not that. But as its own separate entity, it's a very funny, very engaging documentary.
As long as you go in with the right mindset in terms of this is nothing to do with 007, Ian Fleming's James Bond at all. This is just
it's a jumping off point from there. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the title also accomplishes that too. The Other Fellow,
I give it a 5 out of 5 as well, and I think it's what we need. We don't need more things about the Bond series. We need this. We need something to take it another step further. This is what we needed, something that goes beyond what we already have, not a rehash of anything that we've seen before. We needed something fresh, and that's what we got.
Well said. Yeah,
totally agree. Yeah, I will echo that 100%. I think it's not only is it, it's again, I kind of prefaced earlier saying like, please, Bond fans, don't rush into this thinking it's a Bond documentary. Yeah. That is the thread that holds it together, and for us, it does give it an extra spark. It's a little extra fun because we do sort of you do get a lot of good stuff in terms of like Fleming taking the name, the actual ornithologist whose name it was, his response, which that was probably something I probably didn't know before. But again, it is something that just sort of goes off in a different tangent, but a very satisfying. It's also extremely well polished. Like I was pretty impressed by how slick this was. And then frankly, I even said to Matt, I wanted to sort of call bullshit, excuse my language, and say like, this is your first documentary? Because it looks very well polished, very well put together. I mean, usually when you're watching someone's first work, you're seeing some of the chinks in the armor, and you see
Yeah.
things that probably going forward they'll do a little bit better, etc. This one, I mean, this looked extremely well put together. Again, very slick, and he just you felt like you were in very capable hands. So yeah, I and again, the added value is that this is something you can watch with the whole family, and everybody will enjoy it. You know, not just the hardcore fans.
Yeah, I mean,
Totally
he did
agree.
spend many years putting this together. I think he said,
Yeah.
I think he told me he started filming this around the time of Skyfall. And
Oh wow!
so and some of these, so he would actually go back to some of there were some people he interviewed back in 2012, and some people he was able to kind of catch up with him a few years later, to get new material, to see what how things might have changed in their stories. And then I think he probably also had time to think about the whole presentation of the film to really, so he was able to really put a lot of thought into it and really polish it, and it shows.
Well, Matthew, if you've come back onto the live stream or rewatching it on YouTube, you've got what looks like 3 5 out of 5 star reviews. So that sounds pretty good, gentlemen. We're already over half an hour. I think we'll have to knock Plug-in Bond on the head. So I think at this point we'll goodbye. Joe, have you got anything coming up on your end?
Yeah, actually, I just spoke with Matt just last night, in fact. So I've got a podcast with him coming out in the next day or two. And other than that, I'm not sure what I've got coming up, but.
Joseph, thank you very much for jumping on the live stream.
Anytime.
Matt, what have you got coming up?
So this week I did not have a blog post out. I couldn't get that polished enough for my liking in time. So look forward to more of my blog next week.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Ken, anything new from your end?
Yeah, I actually recorded a lot more videos from the set of Brad Pitt and George Clooney's new film called Wolves, directed by John Watts, who did the Spider-Man films. So some new content coming the next couple weeks. Just follow me on Instagram at Oceansographer to find it.
Great stuff. Thank you, Ken. I have another review out on From Tailors With Love.co.uk. This is on the TM Lewin black braces that you see Daniel Craig's James Bond wearing with his tuxedo. You know, you make your decision whether that's acceptable or not. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you all for watching on the live stream, listening to the podcast, or catching up again on YouTube. Until next time.